Welcome, and thank you for joining on a late Monday afternoon. Start Smart is a nonprofit association that has been running the Start Smart acceleration program for the past 11 years. Before under the brand MIT Enterprise Forum, hence our very close relationship with MIT. And we have accelerated more than 260 startups from the region that have gone on to raise more than 350 million. Our focus is primarily in technology-driven startups, and the program is designed to help these startups take their effort faster. Last week, we did another workshop on the use of generative AI tools and how you can use them more broadly. This week will be more focused. The acceleration program is currently in the application phase. The applications are open until February 14. Then we will select the top 25 teams to take them through the program, which will run from March until June. The later part of the program in June will include also a demo day where 10 of the teams that will be eventually be the most high performing will have the opportunity to pitch in front of live audience during the Start Smart Summit and compete for funding from some awards and funding from our partners. The main part of the program includes workshops and mentoring from a large group of mentors across Europe and US. And a big part of the content that we deliver is based on content from MIT. We have a very close relationship with MIT. MIT is known for its top academic performance, but it is also known as one of the most successful startup ecosystems. The alumni community has created more than 32,000 startups, and that includes major names like Dropbox, Hewlett Packard, and many others. And if that community was a nation of its own, it will have the 10th largest GDP in terms of annual sales. And that part of that collective intelligence in technology entrepreneurship is collected and shared, and we have together the Martin Trust Center for MIT Entrepreneurship, which is one of the most important parts at MIT that contribute to this sharing of this knowledge. They run programs, they have workshops, and the Delta V program is one of the most successful startup programs for MIT students. So we have the opportunity to bring that knowledge and that these resources to the broader community. And we have been doing so for the past 11 years, building part of our workshops on the Discipline Entrepreneurship book by our good friend Bill Ole, and the 24 steps, and then the 15 tactics. The book is distributed to the participants of the workshop. And today we're going to talk about another service that will come to the companies that they will attend the acceleration program. It's a suite of software called Orbit. We have together Doug Williams, who's the product lead for the Orbit software. And essentially, you can think of it as a generative AI wrapper around the content of the book that helps you leverage the knowledge within the book much faster. So without further ado, I would like to invite Doug and our friend Tim that it is ready to get us to Orbit to share how these tools work and how they can be useful for the community. Thank you, Doug, for coming, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Vasilius. Very glad to be here and glad to represent MIT and the Martin Trust Center for MIT Entrepreneurship. I myself have done a number of startups, an education startup that we sold to Pearson Education, technical startups in the early days of the internet, car sharing, a company called Zipcar. I got to lead the tech and product teams, and Runkeeper. As a runner, I was working with runners. It was kind of a dream come true. We grew that to 50 million users worldwide and sold it to ASICS, and essentially used the basic concepts that we're talking about here. And Vasilius is a Runkeeper user, which is great. And I will drop in some anecdotes from that of lessons learned and what it means using this software. And then most recently, healthcare. There are new worldwide standards, FHIR, for sharing data, healthcare data, that were started in Australia. And truly, I have a worldwide audience. And I've been working in that area. And now I get, as a startup guy, software guy, get to develop tools for entrepreneurs, student entrepreneurs here at MIT and other universities worldwide. And then we're also piloting with individual entrepreneurs through programs like Start Smart C. So glad to be here. MIT has an emphasis on hands-on learning. So this is going to be primarily showing you the software online in real time versus a set of slides, and getting you ready for when you use it yourselves as part of the program. And we'll talk about how that works. So I'm going to share my screen. Here we go. So this is the basic Orbit platform. When you join, you'll join as part of the Start Smart C cohort. My default cohort is the MIT cohort. And we show, you'll see recommended people. They'll be within Start Smart C. When you register or after you register, you can put your name in. Encourage you to put full profile information. It'll be helpful to meet your current cohort at Start Smart C and also future cohorts. And then over time, we're going to begin opening it up to the entire community. So we've got about 6,000 MIT users now. We're approaching 12,000 users overall, just doing pilots. And so you want to create that profile, and we're building tools, working with companies like LinkedIn to build tools to make it effective mechanism to find the information you need, but also the people you need as you go through your startup journey. So early on, we recommend people who are complementary and different to you. We also left access in for the startup opportunities at MIT, the events, many of them you can join remotely, our resources and classes. So we use it as a one-stop shop to pull the MIT community together. We're looking at how to help entrepreneurship worldwide. What we found talking to our students was they really were glad we captured all the information for a community of 11,000 students, another 5,000 or 6,000 faculty and staff. But then they asked us, they said, you know, Doug, we're kind of overwhelmed. Could you begin to provide guidance? And that's what we're going to talk about here, are JetPacks. The JetPacks are the beginnings of our beginning to provide guidance focused on our core entrepreneurship frameworks that Vasilius talked about. So our two core entrepreneurship frameworks, essentially Entrepreneurship 101, 102, are discipline entrepreneurship. This will help you refine your idea. So with Runkeeper, we grew to 30 million users as a running app, and then we began adding additional sports. And we found that we had gone from a pretty good running app to a okay health app. And if you're going to do anything entrepreneurial, you want to be great. So it was not okay to be an okay app. We needed to be a great running app. And to do that, we had to really focus back on our customers. So these tools help you lead yourself on the path of focusing on your customers and building a business. Startup Tactics is used to get your business up and running. So you've got this great idea, you've refined it. What are assistants that can be provided to get you up and running? So those are our two frameworks. So I'm going to launch now into discipline entrepreneurship. When you first log in, this is what it'll look like. The cartoons are from a Romanian entrepreneur. He was not paying attention to Bill Aulette, who's the head of our center, who was in Europe giving a presentation. He was doodling. And afterwards, all the attendees, and I've heard this from Bill and from Marcius, said Bill needs to get with Marcius. And Bill said, I don't want to get with him. He wasn't paying attention. And he had been doodling these pictures. And they now are lifelong friends. Bill had him draw the JetPack figure. The point of these are, we treat entrepreneurship very seriously. The goal of these tools, the goal of Start Smart C, is to increase your odds of entrepreneurial success and essentially teach people to fish. So learn, test, research, analyze the best techniques in entrepreneurship worldwide and pull them into core frameworks, books, teaching, and now software, and make them available to MIT and eventually the world. And the core of what we've done, a study was done by ITAM. I think it's billed as the Harvard of MIT. We had a researcher there do a study, 10-year longitudinal study, and what she was able to uncover is, for the people coming through our core programs, the average success rate was over 60% after 5 years. They're still in business, still going. They had raised $1 billion for their programs and then raised another $2 billion for their subsequent efforts. So it fit teaching to fish. Their first efforts were successful. Their second efforts were even more successful. So that's the basis for what we're doing. And it's pulling the best practices. So MIT doesn't believe it has a monopoly on best practices, but it believes it has a role in disseminating best practices. So, but as part of that, Bill wants to keep a sense of humor around it. And that's what I love about his books. We've tried to incorporate those into the software. Because if you're going to change the world, you got to keep a sense of humor. You got to be serious about it, but you don't know the outcome. So you have to be humble and keep a sense of humor. And that's always a good idea. So Vasilius had given me an idea. I want to build a mobile app and web platform that uses AI to help users make more sustainable choices in their daily lives. So I copied that in ahead of time. I hit submit. And now I have the choice of going to discipline entrepreneurship or startup tactics. I'm going to start with discipline entrepreneurship because I want to think, who am I building this for? So it seems like a great idea. So I click on it. And now I'm brought in to the 24 steps of discipline entrepreneurship. So in my startups, as I was coaching the teams and helping as one of the leaders for the startup, I would bring in the best practices. What I had learned, what people had taught me. I brought in lean startup. I brought in design thinking. and essentially tried to pull together what Bill has now done in the 24 steps. And last year he introduced the 10-year anniversary. These continue to evolve, 10-year anniversary edition. But essentially what it did is pulling the best practices and make them accessible. And Vasilius has one in his hand, but they're like $20. You definitely want it on your shelf, and they're intentionally accessible. We just led a seminar for the leading entrepreneurial universities, and they talked about design thinking. And at every stage, Bill was pushing them to keep it as simple as possible and as accessible as possible. And that's really what we're trying to do. And I'm getting feedback, like as you look here, there's some acronyms. DMU, it means decision-making unit. TAM, total addressable market. We're going to be updating it to put the full names in here. When we did it first, we wanted them short and simple. But that's the kind of things we'll do in our software, is make sure the software, the books are accessible. So the other thing that's notable about the 24 steps is the first 5 steps are, who is your customer? And that's the most important part of all our programs. So we have people from our labs, our postdocs use this software. They love this software because it gives them a recipe book on how to think about how to apply their technologies in a customer setting. They're busy in their labs, but instead of starting with the technology and then finding solutions, it says start with the customers and understand their problems. At Zipcar, we were looking whether to start providing our own technology in the car. It seemed like a neat idea. You could walk in. This was pre-Tesla. You could have this flat screen. But we were concerned on the product and technology side that we would be competing with what the cars were doing. So what we did is we said, let's focus on the customer experience in the car. We did lots of focus groups for our software and our mobile apps, but we hadn't done the same rigor in the car. And what we found is it wasn't what was in the car that was the first moments of truth, the first crisis points for using our software. It was finding the cars. We assumed everyone knew the cars because we knew where the cars were. So people couldn't even find the cars. And then when they got to the car, unlocking the cars, we were used to it. So really thinking through those details. And so we were able to make huge gains with little extra effort by really focusing on the customer experience. So that's what this does. So let's take Vasilius's idea and let's start the first step. So I click on the first step. And what it's going to do is say, okay, I got this mobile app and web platform. I want to make sustainable choices in their daily lives. Well, I got to kind of figure out who I'm doing it for. So if I'm doing it for local governments, that's going to be one product. If I'm doing it for corporations, that's going to be another. If I'm doing it for environmentally conscious consumers, it's going to be yet another product. The technology could be the same, and they're all mobile apps or all web apps, but how the product is positioned, how I sell it, how I bring it to market is going to be very different. And so this is helping automate what we do in our courses, which is, who is your customer? And are these actually the people that you think you want to go after? So it makes you think about the customer at the very outset, which is what we do with all our programs. And it starts in context to your idea. So we have a woman working on Raman microscopy. So it's a very new technology, and she can parallelize it versus ganging them up in serial. So today you can put 5 sensors together in serial, she can parallelize as many as you want. Well, that's neat, but who do you want it for? And so because we're pulling the information using the largest or the latest large language models, they've been scraping the public information, so they know what Raman microscopy is, and it can begin to help think about, with our prompts, which markets might be used. And so for Raman microscopy, it could be used for biotech manufacturing. Well, we have the largest biotech manufacturing, Genzyme, or the first large, couple blocks from here. She had looked at some ones that were more accessible, but as we went through it, we realized we really needed to get her into that factory at Genzyme and put our effort in that, got her there, and she began to really get insights. And that's what you want to do with any of your ideas, whether it's a restaurant, it's innovation driven, where Start Smart C is focused, who's your customer? So in this case, Vasilius, which of these markets is most interesting to you?
When we did the demo last week, we focused on the first two. So it was consumer oriented. So it would be environmentally conscious consumers or health and wellness enthusiasts. So you can
Great.
pick.
And what this did on its own sort of fit your market segmentation. So the other thing we do with this is we treat the assistants, we treat this as an assistant, and we would tell you, use a whole range of other tools. What this is going to be is a framework for advancing your thinking, who you're going to focus on. But we have tabs open with other tools. This allows us to capture it. And we treat this as a smart set of undergraduates at MIT. So they're smart, they do secondary market research quickly, but you need to drive. And the steering wheel for our AI JetPacks is update idea. So I'm gonna, in this case, say that I agree with the market segments, and I'm going to focus on health and wellness enthusiasts. There may be, what I can do is I can create an idea, another idea, or I can change this one to show what the difference is between the two initial markets. We call it a beachhead. A beachhead says, when I land, if there are any uninhabited islands, or 5,000 years ago when I landed on an uninhabited Greek island and I wanted to take over the range islands, the beachhead would be my first island. If I've got a boat with a crew of 40 people, I can't land on 5 islands all at the same time. The chances are I might land, but I can't sustain it. So the beachhead is where I want to start. So I'm going to say health and wellness enthusiasts, and then hit save. This information, as you refine your idea, gets passed back into our Gen AI tools. We happen to use a AI middleware from an MIT startup called Stack AI. And Vasilius, if you could put that into the chat. The founders are from Spain and Venezuela, so they have an international orientation to start, and they're very good. And so what they allow us to do was use any of the LLMs. We happen to be using OpenAI Omni Mini right now, but we're experimenting with other LLMs, and all the LLMs want to partner with us and with MIT so we can use the best ones for the best purposes. But they also keep the information secure. So when you're working inside our platform, we caution that you're sharing to an academic platform. We have an honest broker policy, so I can't benefit from your idea. So Vasilius, this is an amazing idea. You're willing to let it be broadcast so everyone else can take it. I'm not allowed to take the idea because this is my honest broker policy. But we do use these kinds of things to optimize a tool for advancing entrepreneurship. Your information and what I'm working on here also is not being shared to OpenAI or any of the large language models. It's being indexed locally. So Stack AI does that for us. So we have a easy to use web front end, Stack AI, and then the latest and best large language models. And that's kind of the core framework. And then I'm gonna, so as I put this information in, I can continue to refine my idea. So I like the way the potential market segments. I'm focused on health and wellness enthusiasts. And then this would have allowed me, I've already picked it, this would have helped me think about my decision to focus on health and wellness. Now let's look at my decision. So this is helping me think about it, the criteria, and this would be applicable for yours. Again, it's an assistant. So you have to make your own mind up. When we use this for Orbit for entrepreneurs, there are 200 million entrepreneurs in the world, and you can double it or halve it when you take numbers. So it could be 100 million, it could be 400 million. It's still a very large number. When we went through this process for Orbit, it said focus on the entrepreneurs. Well, our values and passions are more consistent with student entrepreneurs. So we're going to focus on student entrepreneurs and focus with the leading universities and acceleration programs. That's why Start Smart C is in our beachhead market. We're going to focus on students as our beachhead because it aligns with MIT and the Martin Trust Center. So you need to go through the same process and think through it. Environmentally conscious consumers may have a more compelling reason to buy, more compelling than health and wellness enthusiasts. This is like Zipcar. When we introduced Zipcar, we appealed to environmentally conscious consumers, and we reached those people. They were here in Cambridge, Massachusetts, very liberal. We got great acceptance here, but we went to Boston. The high income places of Boston, they didn't want Priuses, they wanted BMWs. And they were interested in access to luxury cars, or other parts wanted access to economic cars. So ultimately for us, by looking ahead, we ultimately appealed to the economically motivated buyers, and that's how we grew to hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue and sold to Avis, who operates the service now, was thinking about where our market was. So even though you might start with health and wellness enthusiasts, you just have to realize that they may have a less compelling reason to buy your service. So taking it into account. So we're going to stick with our initial assumption, not switch it, but we could also try it again. In fact, maybe I will do that. Let's switch target markets. And this is where you can experiment with it. And often we recommend trying it with multiple ideas. So almost all the users have multiple ideas or variants of ideas. So I can also edit the idea and add for environmentally conscious consumers, and then I can make a new idea for health and wellness. So you can experiment it, as Vasily said, with the tools. You just want to try different things. But if it was me, I would make two different ideas, one for each of the target markets. So now I've picked my target market. who am I building it for? Who's a consumer? I'm going to get up today and build this tool for consumers. Vasilius showed Runkeeper. He's proud of having it. What I really want to do is build it for Vasilius and really understand what he's doing. That's how I win. So the third step is thinking about what's the profile for these people. So this is recommending a potential profile. It's saying 18 to 45. I may decide I want to focus narrower. For Runkeeper, we had a set of runners, that marathon runners, and we initially were building a product for ourselves. So we were building a product for people who average 6 to 8 minute miles, which is very fast. But it turns out our end users were really beginning to intermediate runners. Their challenge was how to fit running in their day. So the product for marathoners is very different than the product for busy people just trying to make sure that they can run more than none. And so it makes for a different product. The same thing with this idea. You really want to understand what it is, and you can update this and tell it for end users ages 18 to 30. So I'm going to go for a lower demographic, and then it'll rerun it for that. And every time I do a run, I'll get a new version. So when this one completes, I'll have a new version. In fact, it did it just as so here's the new version, and then I can rename it. So I can rename it 18 to 30. And so what we're helping with is allowing you to iterate quickly on your idea. So for our entrepreneurs, be it executive ed or students, we really recommend and share where do you start, but more importantly, where did you iterate to, and share those versions with us and tell us who you talked to and where you got better. And so that's what we're doing here. And then the final thing I'll show in here is in this early stage, as you're trying to debate, Vasilius is really interested in this idea and wants to build it. And is it for environmentally conscious or healthy? He can compare it. Well, one way to compare it is a quick calculation of the size of the market. And so the total addressable market for the beachhead, we help give you the calculations. And again, we encourage people to do their own research to decide. We had someone in our program, our January accelerator, was focused on nutritional supplements for pets. And they knew what these the numbers were. And so they can go in and add those to update idea or request changes. Ultimately, update idea is the way to carry your information through your idea, through your business plan. But they could update the idea for the ones they wanted to change, and the calculations are here. And so you could compare whether you think it's a fit. I really relate to health conscious customers. It's about the same target market. I'm going to go for that. And then I'll do economic, environmentally conscious second. But we really want you to focus on who you're going to be great for out of the gate, where you really relate to them. And then ultimately, you want real people. So the persona is supposed to be a real person, not something that a computer generated for you. You and your team can't motivate yourself by coming through and building a product for female 28. What you need to do is build a product for Valerie or Jody or Ruth, for real people, and really understand what motivates them. How do they find out about them? How are they accomplishing this today? You have this great idea. Well, they're accomplishing this today, maybe not as well, but you have to displace what they're doing today. So this is really getting in their heads by talking to real people. And the emphasis is to give you tools and give you these online tools, not to spend more time on your computer, but to do it quicker and spend less time on your computer and more time with real customers. Because we've given you the automation, we've given you videos explaining each of the pieces. And I'll go back to that one. Actually, let me go into production. I wanted to show what it looked like when there was no ideas in. I do a lot of these demos. These are the types of things, we've got innovation centers in Vienna and Ohio and Texas. As I go through this, it's the same thing. And we've got the videos in production for how to think about personas. There's multiple videos. We've got the matrices. These are the things we want you to think about, but now we've helped automate it to show what it would look like and some information on why, and we have the books. So this is disciplined entrepreneurship. And I'm going to pause there before I show startup tactics. Vasilius, any questions you might have or anybody through the chat?
I have a couple of questions. I'll tell people from the chat. In the previous part, you showed up some numbers for the expected amount people would be willing to pay. How these numbers came about? Did the system does a real-time search for that? Are you using specific tools? How people should think about them? I mean, the structure of the computation is very understandable, but when you say $150 per month on these type of products, how do you get that?
A great question. I'm really glad you asked that. So this is doing exactly what you said, and this is one of the reasons we're staying with OpenAI. They're pulling the public information on the internet pretty much in real time now, and feeding it in through their products. And then they're looking to find new sources. So this is coming through their scraping of the public information. We're looking at tools like Claude and then Perplexity in particular to provide the actual source material. So we try to reference it here, but what we emphasize is you should be checking these numbers with public information, but also talking to your customers. So what we recommend is check this information, but it's a first pass at trying it. But for our students, if you get in front of an investor, what you don't want to do is say MIT's Orbit tool gave it to you. You really want to back it up yourself, and you want to look at the numbers. Which of the ones have you backed up yourself? Which ones do you want to look at? So for me, when I use this tool with our investors, my position is funded by MIT alumni who are venture capitalists themselves. And we had a big debate over going after the entrepreneurs versus the student centers, because entrepreneurs are more accessible. If we were doing this outside MIT, we'd completely go after entrepreneurs. The good news for me is twofold. There's a small total addressable market for entrepreneurs. When I'm running a startup, I don't pay for anything. I pay for education, like Start Smart C, but I really try to minimize my spend and get people to help me. So I also try to find people like Vasilius who can help me either directly or know people. So when I was using this with them, with the VCs, I had to corroborate every one of my numbers. But these were the numbers I needed to corroborate. They were all right in front of me. So I looked at, when I said 200 million, I knew that there was UN UN data that had looked at entrepreneurship, for instance. So I had a few sources I could use throughout. But really great question. So that's where I always had additional tabs open, and use those in conjunction with Orbit. So great question. Another question?
A clarification for the people that have not used these thing before. It's a huge improvement and time saving on going through just the examples and the tables that you have in the book, because for the past 10 years we've been using the book only to help the entrepreneurs going through our program, and now you can give them a starting point, because sometimes it's pretty difficult even to get the early versions of the numbers on which you can iterate on in order to get to the ground truth. For those of you that have tried before and or have not tried before, this is incredibly useful. The other question I have, I don't know if anybody from the audience wants to add, is last week when we're doing the general Gen AI toolbox for startups, one of the tools lately that I'm using most of the time is Gemini Deep Research. That I don't know if have you used it, Doug?
Yes, we have a big Google facility. I have a number of friends at Google, and I know the people on Gemini and the deep research.
Yeah, so the deep research part gives it could be have you tried deep research? Obviously they don't have it available as an API, so people would have to copy that and move to deep research to validate some of these numbers or
Yeah,
verify them,
that's
which
how
again,
I've used it. And also OpenAI has their Omni 1 and Omni 3. They're too slow for us to give the first pass. So we're using
yeah,
Omni because it does it quickly, which is important for entrepreneurs, and it gives the right high level, and it's consistent. Some of the newer models can't consistently, they are thinking too hard. And so we need to consistently produce the results. Sometimes when we've gone through our models, we've got the large language models temperature turned down to 0. It's hard to make changes. So we recommend creating a new idea, maybe with a new target market, so that it'll start fresh. You'll find
mhm,
that. So that's the nature of us using this as a tool for entrepreneurs. But it's important to try things like Gemini Deep Research. The generally available Gemini has really been optimized for search. So the generally available Gemini is less useful for what we're doing for that reason as well.
yeah, yeah,
So there's kind of experimenting, and tools like Stack AI let you try out the APIs of various if you're building a product, which is why we
yeah,
recommend, because you want to experiment as you're refining your target market. That's the highest return on investment. And then you want to prototype in the easiest to change way, which is also
yeah.
high, before you code everything in, which is where things get more expensive. And so we use the prototyping tools from the LLMs, then convert that to Stack AI, and then eventually put it in the product.
Super. Amazing tools. I mean, when you were building all your previous startups, as I did, I wish we had these type of tools to get to the early questions.
Totally. So in our healthcare startup, to your point, we were doing healthcare data standards. We could use those. We wanted to use them for digital health startups. We could
Mhm.
also sell them to hospitals, systems, major hospital systems. We could also sell them to pharmacy, and then we could also sell them to the U.S. health insurance companies or the national health insurance companies.
Mhm.
And we had pilots going on each one. Ultimately, we worked in the health insurance companies. That was our beachhead market and pushed everything there. Yet we still want to help digital health companies, and we're doing those as new companies. That's one of the reasons I'm at MIT is my passion is first, modernize healthcare, but second, help the patients directly. And so I feel like we got modernizing healthcare data started, but now I want to work with digital health companies that are closer to the customers because that's where my passion is. So always you want to follow your passion. And you can build companies that that are very important, and you understand that you can get started and other people can run with, and that's what I've done. And then you want to take pride in them continuing them, which I take pride in. But being able to run the models, like you said, is super important. I have one last thing, if we have time, is just quickly show the other framework, just to make sure it's available. So as you're going through and refining the market, the 15 steps of startup tactics are how to get up and running. I love this idea. I want to go after health conscious consumers. What are the things I need to do? Well, one of the things is I probably should set goals. So Vasilis, you've been setting up this seminar, you've been doing Smart C. You really need goals to get this mobile app idea up and running. So it helps set goals. Now, again, these are undergraduates. They're very aggressive. They're very smart. I'm not sure that a week, they could launch a prototype in a week because they're crazy smart. I would probably need 12 weeks. So I can change the idea, put 12 weeks in for the goal, 12 weeks for prototype, because this is my steering wheel. I'm driving the ship, not the computer, not these smart undergrads. So that's the first thing. The second thing is I might need, MIT Start Smart C keeps saying, talk to the customer. That's where the information is. Well, I'm an engineer. I've got this brilliant idea. I can develop mobile apps. I'm not the greatest at knowing how to go about that. So this is helping me think about how I might approach the market. And age range. The discipline entrepreneurship information is kept separate from startup tactics. So it didn't know that I wanted to go after ages 18 to 30. So I better include that. So target end users 18 to 30. Because I'm driving this, I need to kind of, we thought about sharing the information without asking the users across all of them. We had two problems. When we shared too much information, it made the large language models go off track. They got confused, they had too much information, so they didn't do a good job. So it was helpful to keep each step in each framework separate from each other, and you have to move it across. So now I'm 18 to 30. So we want you to be in charge, so you have to take charge, which I just did. So it was the combination of over-automating, where you think the computer can do it all for you, and it can't. Ultimately, you want to use a computer to spend more time with real people, because real people is where it's at, and that's how you can do things that really matter. But this then helps you think about, where do I find people? And it's just giving you a place to start. They might be here, they may not be here. You have to decide. So that's the first part. And then another example is, they were just texting me, the winner in our big, over the weekend, we had a couple hundred people do virtual reality hackathons. And one segment was called Founders Lab, where it was people who really wanted to be judged on founding it. And the winners used Orbit and my friend just told me that, and they needed to create pitch decks. So this is a tool to help them think about it. When you're creating a pitch deck, and when I did pitch decks for Orbit, I would take this information, and I'll show you how, and I'd bring it into the other tools. So I was working in concert. Our pitch deck information is helping you think about what are the elements you want to include. So it's not building the pitch deck, it's thinking through what are you trying to do. Because if we just show you the pitch deck, there's no learning. So this is thinking through the key elements of a pitch deck. Well, I needed a pitch deck quick, and so what I could do was go to my summary of the work I'd done and download the PDF. And if I was comfortable sharing the idea, or if I had a business license for OpenAI where my information wasn't shared, I could begin to use OpenAI and the other tools, ChatGPT, to build my pitch deck. But what Orbit gave me, and then this has all the information I've done, but what Orbit did was teach me how to fish. Same as Start Smart See. What am I trying to do? I want to be great at entrepreneurship. I can't be great at entrepreneurship if computers are telling me what to do. I need to really understand what I'm doing. And that's what we try to do here. So you've got tools on thinking about building engineering teams, thinking about hiring, legal status. I can make, I should do this. Let's say I want to start in Greece, because why wouldn't I? So I would, now I'm going to say for Greece, I'll say for Greece. I could say for Greeks, but they're all over. There were 1 million Greeks here for our January programs, even though it was minus 13 Celsius. But I'm going to say for Greece, and you can also even try putting the language as Greek. Now, if you run into any trouble, create a new idea outside Greece, because I'll have a harder time helping you. But because the large language models understand Greek, I can tailor it. And I can ask it to give the outputs in euros. In fact, I'll do so. If it didn't do it already with euro currency. So try these things. If one idea seems like it's stuck on its original way of thinking, like now everything I do here in this idea is going to be in Greek, I might create a new idea because I can read English, I can't read Greek. But it is amazing in this day and age. We're living in the future, what we can do. And ultimately, this is all about doing meaningful things, meaningful for people that make a difference in the world. That's why we want to make your tools available through programs like Start Smart See. We need to address the world's problems, climate, healthcare, and we believe entrepreneurship is one of the ways to really do that, and that's why we make the tools available. And we want you to give us feedback so we can continue to make them better, and we'll continue to partner with others to continue to make them better. So that's it, Vasilius.
I want to add a couple of points which I mentioned last week. Entrepreneurship is a hard, thing to do, and I think tools like Orbit and the work that you do at Martin Trust and we do here at Start Smart is to make it a little bit easier, but it will never be extremely easy in the sense that it will not be ready. You have to put up the work, and I think you should do that, because I always, in discussions like this, I always remember the example from Nassim Taleb's book about the Black Swan, where he talks about the turkey, and he says that when a farmer gets a turkey, the turkey is very afraid of the farmer and and tries to stay as far uh, uh, as he can from the farmer. But every day the farmer comes and feed the turkey, so the turkey feels more comfortable until Thanksgiving. And you don't want to get to the Thanksgiving moment by just letting these tools drive the discussion, as Doug said. So think of them as assistants. This is a pretty good, very structured assistant compared to the assistants that you have in the market. And um, my approach to using them and recommending to the people we are working with is to use all these different tools for different parts, because you want to confirm, you want to bounce back some ideas. One of the things that I like to do, even when I'm using the tools, I showed it last week, is if I get a recommendation, for instance, for an email, cold email from ChatGPT, to create a new thread within ChatGPT and ask to give me feedback about the thing. I mean, usually as humans, we don't tend to do that because it doesn't make sense. Like, and if I give something to Doug to write, I cannot just turn around and asking you, Doug, do you feel it's okay? But with ChatGPT, because it has zero memory of that thing across the threads, you can get extremely good feedback. So you can use these products and then download it, as Doug said, get it to ChatGPT or to Gemini or whatever else you like, and throw it there, and create the next step and the next step. So um,
Yeah.
yeah, well, this is, I don't know if anybody from the audience has any other additional questions.
And I totally concur with what you're saying. And we're looking at adding some of those things as well as how to critique it. And we want to make sure it's coming from a different thread. So, and
Yeah.
the other side is for our main January accelerator, we used to cover multiple steps. Now all we do during the accelerator is focus on customer research, primary market research from customers. It's hard. How do you reach them? How do you get there? They tell you really interesting things. How do you adjust to it? That's entrepreneurship. Ultimately, people are going to use whatever you're developing it. And these tools should be helping you think more clearly about the people and then iterate and then talk to them again. And that's how you want to think about it.
Yeah, yeah. It definitely helps people that they are not very good at open public engagement, or like, starting cold discussions to get you going, because now you have a set of tools. But it's part of doing that. Doug, one question that I don't remember I've seen, if we have a team, can people collaborate on the same idea?
Yeah, great question. Right now, the main collaboration is just sharing the PDF. What we found with teams is what we hoped. We wanted to focus on the end user first versus teams, because we'd have to do more effort and get. And so what teams have done is usually one member will keep the main idea, but it's really good for all team members to be using the tools and thinking it through, and they use it to iterate. So it's turned out, we thought it would be the first thing we'd have to do. It's on the list of things we're looking at, but it's not first. The things we're looking at is more guidance, the ability to upload information already pulled together, and then the ability to help apply for programs. So we're looking at those kinds of things. But we do have collaboration in now. The main way is through the PDF. And then just sharing through Zooms and things. Great question, though.
Great. Collaboration is the big thing, but it's not easy.
The teams have
It's not.
figured it out. The teams actually know how to collaborate, and so it's sometimes good to say, if I run the same idea, I'm going to get different results. It's all built on probability. So I might say what I see I like better than what I'm seeing in your screen. So the biggest thing is you want all team members to be involved in thinking about customers. So what you don't want is business people telling engineers what to do and vice versa. The way to motivate engineers as an engineers is to get them thinking about customers. If
Yeah.
you're telling everybody what to do, your group is only as smart as you. What you want to do is be as smart as all your customers and all pulling it together and sharing the information.
The point you mentioned, and you said something about the same thing much earlier. You mentioned temperature. You have set it to 0 for everything. So essentially, if I start with the same
Currently, it
idea,
is because we're running now. We're in the thousands of ideas running, and we wanted to keep repeating it out. And I haven't had an experiment now in terms of upping the needle. So we've got like 40 different steps, and we just defaulted them all to temperature 0. When
so
we
essentially, when you
when
start with the
we
same idea,
adjusted,
you
yeah. So when you start with the same idea, you saw it will respond, but sometimes it doesn't.
okay.
And when you create a new idea, it'll start fresh. And so you just kind of have to experiment with it. But if it seems too locked in, try a new idea.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any questions from our friends in the audience? Maybe they're thinking about the applications they can have to do
I
so.
have here in the U.S. I have no quiet Greek friends. But it's your evening, you're ready for food. If you have any questions, you can route it to me directly or through Vasilius or Start Smart C. Costa Ligris is one of the leaders in our program.
Yes,
So
Costas is
entrepreneurship in Greece is very important to us. And we think
a
the
good friend.
Greeks are natural entrepreneurs. So we hope we can arm you with tools to assist you in that endeavor.
Thank you so much, Doug. It was a great pleasure
Sure.
to have you. Uh, and we will be looking forward to our next event together. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you all for joining. Looking forward to your applications. Spread the word around.